We're in the right in the middle of an 84-hour prayer campaign where many of the prayers have been prayed right here in this room. So you're sitting in space where for 48 hours, beginning at 6 p.m. Wednesday night, people have been in this room, and a few hours early in the morning, people are praying out of their home, and just the testimonies already coming in of encounters people are having with God, how people are enjoying the presence of God. So you're in a place. It's been a lot of prayers been offered up for hours. Last night, my heart was tended to for Tyler and Annika and their leadership. They just led about an hour and a half of worship in the Psalms, and just some details I don't want to go into tonight. I was in need of a moment where I could sit with no responsibility, but to open up my heart and my hands to receive. And God used Tyler and Annika to fill me last night. So there's a story I think about quite often. It's a guy he found himself in a hospital, and I don't know all the details of the story. I don't remember if it was a disease or an accident, but he found himself in a hospital bed for a long period of time, where for 30 minutes he would lay on his right side, and then a timer would go off, and he had to flip over on his left side for 30 minutes, and a timer would go off. And this just went on and on. I mean, nobody goes into the hospital to get great rest, right? So for 30 minutes, timer, flip. 30 minutes, timer, flip. And on the wall to his right was a picture of the birth of Christ. And a wall to his left was an art piece of the crucifixion of Jesus. So every time he laid on his right and he opened his eyes, he would see that piece of art of God who in and through human flesh came into the world. And when he laid on his left side, he would see this piece of art of Jesus dying on a cross. So on his right side, he would see the birth of Christ, and below it read about the Emmanuel, God with us. And on his left, he would see this picture of Jesus dying on a cross, and below it was, my God, why have you forsaken me? So to his right would give him hope that there is no moment in his life that God is not with him. And when he laid on his left, he would see this piece of art, and he would be reminded, or just asking these questions of, where is God in my suffering? And he talked about how he felt suspended between these two images of the presence of God that abides with us always, and suffering that we endure that sometimes we don't know how to explain. Have you ever felt this way? So welcome to like a Good Friday experience. Because for me, like Holy Week, almost every day of Holy Week, especially this week, because there's been a lot of highs and lows in life and death, but almost every Holy Week, it's like, what am I supposed to feel? Even on a Good Friday, like, can we smile at a Good Friday service? Can I tell jokes in a Good Friday message? Because we know Easter Sunday, and it's hard to kind of sit in Good Friday and just sit at the cross, because we know how the story ends, but we don't want to race to the cross yet. So even though we know how the story ends, that Jesus is victorious and he rose from the dead and death couldn't hold him, there's something about this night where God calls us, can you just reflect on what Jesus did for you at the cross? There's a story in 1928. Her name was Betty. She was 19 years old, engaged to a man in medical school. And she was about to celebrate Christmas with her family when she noticed a few pale spots on her legs. So she went to the doctor, had him checked out. She was diagnosed with Hansen's disease, which we know as leprosy. This was 1928. So the moment the doctor diagnosed her, the doctor told her mom, get her out of this clinic right now. If she doesn't, she's going to infect this entire city. Now, laws back in 1928, public health laws, you were a risk to all of society. So, there were laws that really, it became a life of isolation and separation for you. There were husbands and wives who would separate, they would divorce. If a child had been born to a woman who had leprosy, the child was put up for adoption. You were confined to a detention center in Carville, Louisiana, where this would become your home until you tested negative to active leprosy 12 times, and all of those tests had to be spaced out by a month, and you get one negative test, you start over. So this detention center in Carville became Betty's home. So Betty had this life now. She was isolated and separated from pretty much everything she had ever known. Yet in that detention center, she met another man named Mark who became her husband. He also suffered from leprosy. They ended up having this marriage that thrived even with all of the health challenges they faced. So I want you in your mind just to think about separation for a moment. Like some of you, you may have more stories than others about feelings or long feelings or emotions or a time in your life where you felt isolated or that you felt separated, maybe from God, maybe from each other. One thing that blows me away about Jesus, when I see how Jesus would heal people, especially those with leprosy, is how often Jesus would touch people before he would heal people. And according to the Old Testament, to touch someone with leprosy or to be touched by someone with leprosy, you became unclean. And for Jesus, it was a matter of not just healing people from a physical disease, but also from a social disease. And what you get in the life of Jesus and on the cross and the death of Jesus is Jesus was willing to take on all of our pain, all of our sickness, all of our addictions, all of our disease, anything that separates people from God or that separates people from each other. Jesus was willing to take it on himself for our freedom. So here in just a moment, I'm going to ask Lacey to put up Isaiah 53, just a few verses, but not yet. Isaiah 53, what you do need to know about Isaiah 53, it's this prophecy about the suffering servant. The New Testament quotes Isaiah 53 more than any other chapter in the Old Testament. It pops up everywhere. I'll show you that in just a moment. Now, in Isaiah 53, there are moments where you read about like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and I'm about to show you in just a moment that there are images of a lamb that carries the diseases and all the sin of the world. So I don't know if Isaiah 53 is referencing the Day of Atonement. We've talked about the Day of Atonement here at Sycamore View the last few weeks. On the Day of Atonement, what would happen? It was goats, not lambs, but 2 goats would be placed in front of all of the people of God. And 1 goat would be sacrificed for the sins of the people. It would be slaughtered. But 1 goat, what would happen is the priest laid his hands on the goat's head, symbolizing all of the sins, anything that can separate people from God and people from each other was being placed on that goat. And that goat was led away, far away, as far as the eye could see, so that you had a visual of what God wanted to do to your sin and to anything that separates people from God. So do you just have a visual of what that moment and that experience would have looked like? To see the sins of all of the people that are being carried away. Now, I want you to see, if you'll put it up right now, Lacey, I want you to see just a few places in Isaiah 53 where it talks about how this suffering servant carries and bears our sin and all of our diseases. Isaiah 53:4, he bore our infirmities and carried our diseases. In verse 5, up on him was our punishment. In verse 6, the Lord has laid on him our iniquities. He shall bear iniquities. He bore the sin of many. So what Isaiah 53 wants you to see is it's not just that God looks at you wanting to cancel your sin. It's that Jesus came to say, I want your sin on me. I want your addictions on me, your anxiety, your worries, anything that keeps you up at night. I want anything that is separating you from God or you from each other, sins of racism, nationalism, apathy, greed. I want it on me. And New Testament writers pick up on this. I want to show you a few of these places, and here's what I want to do. We're going to read a few of these together. I'm going to guide you through the reading. If you are sitting next to someone you know, I would like for you to hold their hand. If you're a stranger in the place, don't hold somebody's hand that you don't know. I don't want to freak them out. Like if you go to Sycamore View, they're going to make you hold hands in church. But the verses I'm about to show you, it's not just about you and your personal sin. It's like, hey, we're all in this together. We have rebelled against God together, and we're pursuing God together. Matthew was an apostle of Jesus, and in Matthew chapter 8, verse 17, will you read this with me? He took our infirmities and bore our diseases. Peter was an apostle of Jesus. Here's what happens in these 2 verses. It's longer, but I want you to read these 2 verses with me. He himself bore our sins in his body on the cross so that, free from sins, we might live for righteousness. By his wounds you have been saved, for you were going astray like sheep, but now you have returned to the shepherd and guardian of your souls. Paul was an apostle of Christ. I want you to read this with me from Romans 3. He was handed over to death for our trespasses. And last but not least, Galatians 3:13. Let's read this out loud. Christ became a curse for us. In Romans chapter 10, verse 16, it quotes directly from Isaiah 53. And John 12:38 quotes directly from Isaiah 53. In Acts chapter 8, you have a story about an Ethiopian eunuch who's like reading something in the Old Testament, and he ends up asking Philip, like, hey, help me understand what I'm reading. He's reading Isaiah 53. Philip was so glad that he wasn't reading Leviticus. Like, can you help me understand Leviticus 8? Numbers chapter 4. It was Isaiah 53. It was a softball for Philip to help him understand who Jesus was. It's a chapter, Isaiah 53, that the New Testament points back to in order to say Jesus absorbed all of the pain of the world on the cross. Jesus took your sin, your sickness, your weaknesses, your cancer, your backache, your heartache, your past, your rebellion. He drank it, he became it, he carried it to set us free. Have you ever been around someone who knew that a loved one was suffering from something, and they made statements like, I wish I had what they had. Like, I wish I could take it from them. Like, maybe there's a husband who has a wife who's suffering from cancer, a wife who has a husband who's suffering from something. They're like, I would do anything to take that so they don't have to endure it. I guarantee this happens every day at St. Jude and Lebanon, where there's a parent who says, I would take what's happening to my child right now so that they could have maybe normal or some kind of freedom. Like, I've had these moments myself. Like, I drew it for about a year or so, had stomach migraines. And I remember there being moments that I would just be like, God, I wish I could take those from him. Noah broke his foot just a couple of months ago and had to miss a few weeks of soccer and track. And I had moments, I was like, man, I wish I could take the broken foot so my son could have a season to play. Like, there are moments when my kids have had a hard cough that would just last for days, and there were moments like, I wish just so they could enjoy, I wish I could just have it. There are moments my kids have been puking for 24 hours, and I'm like, I'll let them have that one, God. I don't want that. No, they're good. They'll be fine too. But you know what I'm saying. And for Jesus to look at us and for Jesus to say, it's not just that I'm canceling it. It's that on the cross, Jesus said, I want it. So right now, like, whatever you were dealing with, whatever is separating you from God, or you feel like it's separating you from other people, Jesus, like, I put that on me. I carried it so you don't have to carry it anymore. It's not that just that Jesus wants to lighten your load. He wants you to understand how Jesus has taken your load and has put it on him so you don't have to carry it anymore. Good Friday is a day that we are reminded that Jesus has taken upon himself my sin, our pain, our past, our trauma, in hopes that we will embrace our freedom and live into it. So on Good Friday, and I have these emotions sometimes, like even when we take communion together on Sundays, and if you go to this last slide, Lacey, and I want you to think about this, because there are two things I want to place in front of you, and band, choir, y'all go ahead and make your way up, please. We're going to sing just a few more songs. But there's the question that I often ask, like, what did we do that led to the cross? And then there's this statement of, like, look what Jesus did on the cross. And even tonight in some of our songs, there's some songs we've sung that have been like, look at what Jesus did. And there are other songs that are calling us to reflect on, like, the own sin in our life. As our team's coming up to lead us in some songs, if all you think about is like my sin put Jesus on the cross, but you don't think about the victory Jesus won for us, Satan's going to try to use that to place a lot of guilt and shame on you, which is not what Jesus wants for you. And if all we think about is the victory that comes through the cross, but we don't take time to reflect on some of the things going on inside of us that Jesus wants to transform, then we're not living into what God wants for us. We need both of these, like in one hand and the other hand. My sin, our sin, led Jesus, put him on the cross. And Jesus gave us the free gift of salvation by offering himself on the cross. As we sing these songs, I pray that it invites you both into victory and also reflection. And can I have, I see Randy. It's hard for me to see with the lights. Do we have two shepherds, right? Randy, do you mind like going over there by that exit sign? And can I get one elder, just go by that exit sign? As we sing these three songs, if you need a leader just to pray with you, we have leaders who are here to receive whatever it is you have for them to pray over. Let's sing together.